Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 10 of 20 in Season 1, 2024 of Endurance for Amateurs at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, brought to you by Ninja Botanicals and AlienAwards.net. We've got a 90-minute race with GTD and GTP classes coming up, and last week was an incredible race at Silverstone up and down the field, with Jack Colville dominating the GTP field on debut by 44 seconds over his next closest runner, Nick Paletti. However, we'll be seeing him in the GT3 class today, and due to his I rating, he is classified as a legend, like we saw with Jay Smart on a few races earlier in this season, so you'll see him showing up as yellow, not classified for points, still out here to race and have fun, but as far as the actual official standings, he won't count for any points in that GT3 class. So, after that win last week, Paul Skip, despite leading 16 laps, did hold on to the last step of the podium, crucially a couple spots ahead of his competitor in the championship, Nick Terrell, keeping himself in first overall, now 3 points ahead of Nick Terrell and just 6 points ahead of Nick Paletti. The winning streak continued for Ken Huber in GTDA, where he's won every round since round 2. Sheldon Rosenbaum got his second podium in 2 races, while Chris Newby got his first podium of the season. Huber leads Tyler Lingenberg now by 85 points, who is 7 points ahead of Travis Rowe himself. GTDB was won for the third time by James Foreman with podium number 7 on the season, with Jack Lucas and Richard Curry both earning repeat podiums as well. Foreman not only holds the overall lead by 22 points now, but moves himself into second overall in the GTD field behind only Ken Huber. Jesse Coffey is second, and Kevin Berquist and Jack Lucas are right now tied at 268 points, about 30 points back from second. We have a difficult racetrack coming up today. I know somebody in the Discord said their one goal, their one hope for this race is to just not get a black flag from so many off tracks. Very difficult to keep the off tracks in check here. Again, it's another circuit similar to Road America, similar to Silverstone. We've really kind of loaded up the drivers with some difficult tracks in a row, but ones that offer a lot of opportunities for understeer going out wide, and we may see some of those incidents here today. So as we see, we're going to wait for some of the first hot laps to start. It's quite a long track that we have here. So we're going to have some drivers probably taking it to the very, very end on their laps. One of the longer tracks on the season. A grand total of 20 turns, none of which are named, unfortunately. But this first sector, one of the more difficult parts, and you see those curbs on the inside, as Nathan Westland in that Lightning McQueen Ferrari nips them. You do not want to hit those. Those will take your car out, and it could be a bad day for you. You're not going to likely hit the wall, but you're going to lose a lot of time trying to rejoin that racetrack. So you can see there, that is Ken Huber, again, the dominant leader for the overall GTD class, just making his way through the back half of this course. It's a very long straight. It's quite a wide racetrack. Should be easy for the GTPs to make their way by, if they're able to. Ken Huber right now with a couple purples under his belt, and just 4 sectors on this racetrack despite the length. So when you see a purple there, that probably means good things for the lap to come. And another tight, twisty section that he's dealing with here, 13, 14, 15, 16, is a bunch of really tight hairpins. Should give a good opportunity for some battling if it's still continuing after that long straight. There's definitely a lot of battling that can happen on this racetrack. It's a very difficult track to run in these 10-top cars, but it should be a lot of fun. Even in that GTD entry list, we have a McLaren as well. I don't know if we've seen a McLaren maybe since the first race of the season. So Josh Doty there representing that McLaren. One of the older cars in this GT3 field. I think only the Ford is an older model. Ken Huber with the first time in. Interestingly, no GTP times in. Makes me think that all of them either not starting yet or not getting a legal lap in. Nick Terrell does get the first lap in at a 1:53.4. So he's set the board for these guys up here, but remains to be seen where we're going to see everything. He's the only one of the 5 GTPs in the Acura today. We got 3 of them in the Porsche. Nicholas Paletti, 7/10 off. Ken Huber still holding that lead in GTD. Meanwhile, Jack Lucas has the best qualifying performance so far for the B-class drivers. Big pace differential that we have here at this track. Again, partially because it's so long, but with 20 turns, I mean, and a lot of these being really technical, difficult, almost organic turns, despite it being a very new track. it makes it very difficult to nail every sector on the circuit, every corner, and a perfect lap is likely just not going to come together. You can see Ken Huber on his lap not improving in the first sector, but a purple second sector, which is something not shocked to see. Zach Nurnberger getting a time in there, coming up to 7th place as, again, one of the other drivers in the Ferrari. We're continuing to see more and more drivers switch over to the Ferrari. Again, we saw Nathan Westland just a little bit earlier there switching over to that. I believe was using the Porsche before that point. So a lot of guys using that here today, and it's become a pretty popular car. Paul Skip, his first time, made his way into 2nd place. Still a good 4/10 off. 4 minutes left in this qualifying session. You know, they don't, I mean, GT3s don't have time for 2 more laps. The GTPs just barely do, like if Paul Skip, for example, crossing the line. So he can get 2 more laps in if he's able to nail them and not make any big mistakes. John Kelly puts his first time in there, slots in 4th. Still a lot of drivers yet to put in at least a legal lap. I don't know if they're not out there on the track. We have a couple guys not on the track. We don't see Christopher Craig, and we don't see Jay Smart. I think Christopher Craig said he wasn't feeling up to racing here today, so we probably won't see him put a time in. Not sure if Jay Smart's intending on qualifying here tonight or not. Sheldon Rosenbaum, it's a bit of an improvement. Up to 2nd, loses that now to Jack Lucas. Again, Jack Lucas had a great showing in last week's race. And as I said earlier, currently tied for 3rd place in the championship with Kevin Bergquist. Kevin Bergquist is here, currently in 9th, now down to 10th with that time from Jeff McDonald. So this will be a good performance for Jack Lucas if he's able to do that. Lucas with a few podiums on the season already so far. He's got 3 podiums, but doesn't have that win, doesn't have that pole. And right now, that ladder of those 2 achievements is lined up pretty well, as he is a whole 1.4 seconds over the next B-class driver in James Foreman, who himself 3 poles on the season. Paul Skip's got a purple sector 2 here. Couple greens may be enough to unseat Nick Terrell's time. I mean, 1 purple may not be enough to sit him over, but if it's consistent enough through the rest of this track, as he comes around the final corner, and this final corner, another one that's just begging you to go out wide and lose your lap time here. Not surprised to see probably some of these guys losing it. 2 purples in. Where does that put Paul Skip? It puts him into 1st. Paul Skip, provisional pole position by just a 10th. It is now getting a lot more competitive. He has time for 1 more lap to put in here. Nick Paletti has 1 purple. Does have a yellow on this lap. See where this is able to put him. He's currently 7/10 back, but I think that he's going to be catching up here. Jack Lucas, even with a purple in that 1st sector for the GT3s, does he have enough in that Mercedes, one of the few guys using it, to catch up to Ken Huber? He's 3/10 back right now. Interested to see where this time is once he comes across. This will be his last lap time once he crosses. Nicholas Paletti coming through the long right-hander that will be cooking those tires through turn 17, 18, especially late in these stints. And you don't really want to catch traffic there, I imagine, either. These GTPs should be able to swing their way around, but the GT3 is probably not too comfortable with the GTPs on their outside there. As he comes through the final corner, Paletti putting on a board. What time is this going to be? And that's an improvement, shuffling Nick Terrell down to 3rd. Early pole position holder. He's in the pit lane. He does not have time to put another lap in. It looked like Terrell was going to be able to get pole here, and it's now looking like he's going to be staring at 3rd at best. Very close for Paletti, just 300ths off of Paul Skip, but Paul Skip with the edge on him there. Jack Lucas's time was not an improvement on Ken Huber, and Josh Doty jumping all the way up there into 2nd. Again, in that McLaren, I mean, I think many consider it to not be a too competitive car. Given its age, it does get ignored a little bit by the service, but right now, he's got that in 2nd place. Tyler Langenberg with some improvements. Is that lap time legal? I don't think it was. We saw a purple sector there. Drivers ending their laps as they run out of time. Aaron Claybaugh. See if this is going to change his time at all. I don't think so. Aaron Claybaugh in 8th place. One of the handful of guys running the Porsche now. Used to be the most popular car, and only a few guys now using it. Jack Colville, again, not being scored for championship points, but he improves up to 6th place now. Just to give you a feel of this field, but gigantic field spread that we have here. And many seconds between drivers on this very long, over 2-minute track for these GTDs. So as we get to this warm-up period, we'll verify these results, make sure anybody is promoted, and we'll be right back with you. All right, we are back. As we look at our official results here for today's race, round 10 at Circuit of the Americas, Paul Skip with pole number 5 on the season. No other driver has more than 2, and Skip has now secured 5 of the 10 so far with a 153.2, very close behind Nick Paletti in second, with Nick Terrell there in third, John Kelly in fourth, and Jay Smart with no time. We'll see if he rejoins this race or not. We'll have to see. Ken Huber with another pole position in GTD. This is pole position number 6 for him, with Josh Doty and then Jack Lucas getting the pole for B class for the first time on the season. Sheldon Rosenbaum, Travis Rowe, and Jack Colville follow them. As we continue down the field, Tyler Langenberg, James Foreman, Aaron Claybaugh, and Zach Nurnberger round out the top 10 in GTD. Jeff McDonald, Nathan Westland, Kevin Berquist, Travis Bell, and Christopher Newby. Adrian Garcia, Todd Schneider, Daniel Sykes, and finally Christopher Craig, who like I said, don't think we'll be seeing here in today's race. So as they get going now, getting paced around this track, it should be in for a pretty good race here. Luckily not a full pace lap that we have to endure here. It would be quite a long one at this track, but starting there on the back straight, getting their tires warmed up now through this hairpin section of 13, 14, 15, and 16. Quite a bit easier to take it now at this slower speed, but this will be a pretty big mistake generator, especially if drivers are battling through here. Again, very possible, given that long straight after turn 11 down into turn 12. There could definitely be a lot of side-by-side battling through that section, and we may see some interesting stuff happen as we continue into this race. Paul Skip leading them out front again. Not a rare sight for him to be here on pole. And Circuit of the Americas is going to be a game that you're going to have to play the whole way through. Safety points are going to be paramount here, as drivers are going to struggle to keep their incident points down, and that's even if they don't make mistakes and have crashes or spins or anything, which this track can generate. So difficult track limits, and interested to see how it turns out here. Are we going to see any black flags with track limits? I know some drivers got really close in that Silverstone race last week, but this one might put them over the edge. Paul Skip coming around the final corner. He's going to get a pretty early green flag here as we wait. Nick Paletti keeping the tires warm behind. No Jay Smart in this race, it looks like. So just 4 GTPs that we'll be watching here. 4 very capable drivers. Ken Huber leading the field behind, and they've got a green flag. Paul Skip leading them down in turn 1. Again, no passing will be until, I believe, after turn 2 here tonight. Paul Skip leads them through the first turn, nice and easy. No difficulties so far for these 4, but the racing should be on now. Again, any lap 1 incidents will be investigated, but so far nothing happening. Skip weaving his way through the S's that were influenced by the Maggots Beckett's at Silverstone that we just had last week, and he's taking it nice and smooth through here. No position swapped throughout the entire field, GTP or GTD. Little bit wide for Skip there as he tries to hug the inside corner. These cold tires on these GTPs making it quite difficult to handle them here early. Paletti keeping within touch, but not doing anything to pressure too much. Right now, Nick Terrell looking a little bit more behind to John Kelly, I think, than trying to catch up to Paletti right now. Again, Nick Terrell was the provisional leader for pole position for quite a bit of the race before losing that right at the very end to both of these two in the screen. Still, no position swapped in GTD back there. Ken Huber does lead him. He now has pulled to a 7/10 gap. It's a pretty healthy gap that he's got to that McLaren of Josh Doty behind. And Jack Lucas occupying that Mercedes there in third place. Travis Bell making a move on Kevin Berquist. Kevin Berquist fighting for that B-class podium spot right now in the overall standings, tied with Jack Lucas. Can't be affording to lose too many spots here in this race. Looks like that was just done down the straight. Mercedes tends to do better in the top speed. Nathan Westland now getting by Jeff McDonald. Very bold through this tight, twisty section. Is he going to be able to keep the spot? Is he going to go around the outside? Jeff McDonald keeping it pinned inside. And yeah, Westland giving the spot back. I think that was going to happen no matter what at that point. Just a little bit too cold, I think, to be trying to swing it around the outside there. But giving a little bit of a test and seeing if that's something he can possibly do later in this race. I think it's a move we're going to see happen. Both drivers here in mid-engine cars, which has been the popular pick here for most of these guys, save the exception of a few. On board, you can see how uphill this turn one is. Really helps a late braking move because the elevation assists your braking. You're not going to be locking up nearly as much or having issues with that anti-lock brake kicking in. So drivers can be really bold on the brakes into turn one. The only problem is that straight is not sometimes quite long enough after making their way out of turn 20 to really make anything happen. So interested to see if drivers are able to make that pass happen, but the most common pass we're probably going to see today is down into turn 12, the hairpin at the end of the long straight that we're seeing the GTPs head through right now. Just such a long bit into this braking zone, very hard braking zone that has plenty of track out wide. Even if you push somebody wide, there's at least some runoff. So I think drivers a little more keen to be pretty bold through that section. Jeff McDonald lost a spot early to Westland, now gaining a spot on Zach Nurnberger. Zach Nurnberger trying desperately to not lose the spot to Nathan Westland as well. And he narrowly holds the advantage as they slip in 3 straight down the back straight. Zach Nurnberger going to be trying to reclaim the spot on McDonald live here into turn 12 and almost went 3 wide there for a second. If he gets it slowed down, I think, yeah, Nurnberger actually having to struggle here on the acceleration. McDonald a better exit. Now they're coming through 13. Nurnberger giving him plenty of room, but he occupies that inside. It's a much shorter line, easier line to take. And it looks like the order has, now sorted itself back out. And struggle for Nurnberger. I think it's enough that he's going to be able to stay ahead. Really, the positions have to be sorted at this point. There is no going around the outside of turn 17 and 18 unless you're talking about the GTPs coming around a different class, because it's just too difficult. It's too long of a route, too much G's that the car has to take. But Nurnberger, a good fight back to reclaim that position. Jeff McDonald has had an exciting race so far. Thought about a send on the inside there. It wasn't a wholehearted send, but enough to try to get Nurnberger a little bit loose there. A little bit further up the field, Sheldon Rosenbaum is putting extreme pressure on Jack Lucas. Lucas still staying close to Josh Doty. Josh Doty ever so slightly starting to fall away from Ken Huber, now 1.3 seconds back. It's customary, something that we've seen quite a bit lately. Ken Huber get pole position and start to step away, but after that first pit stop is when we really see that really switch up. And by the way, if you were confused about how some of the strategies worked last week with some of the really long stints or how some of the drivers were doing, fuel was accidentally set to 100%. So not 100% for this race. This is the normal. Oh, and we have Jeff McDonald and Zach Nurnberger possibly in a big incident here. Coming through the S's, I believe. I don't see what might happen here. That was a bit of a bold move there. I don't really think that door was open. Nurnberger closing up on him, but through the S's, I mean, you got to go really, really wide to make a door happen like that. Both drivers head to the back, but it does look like neither guy really with too much damage, so hopefully they can fight back through this field. Right now, back in 15th, 16th, right ahead of Todd Schneider. So they will try to reclaim some positions. Garcia thinking about a send, and it goes wide for Christopher Newby. Newby is going to struggle to maintain this position, and let's see if go around the outside. Garcia keeping it close, a little bit of banging, trading paint, never hurt anybody, and Newby is going to reclaim that position. Maybe for now. Garcia a little bit wobbly through the turn, both and again wide for Newby. Taking those incident points during this battle, not going to help him at all, but he is going to maintain that position. I'm shocked that Garcia wasn't able to make that stick, but it goes to show the difficulty, especially on equally matched cars, equally spent tires, how difficult it's going to be to make a pass happen. But the racing is there. It's just going to be a little bit easier for the defender, other than the fact that he's going to be picking up a lot of incident points here in this race if that's what he continues doing. Travis Rowe right now very close in this tight battle, all the way from Jack Lucas back to Tyler Langenberg, third back to seventh, separated by not much. And Adrian Garcia into turn one has got the spot from Chris Newby right as we turn away. I didn't even think that he had that much of a run on him. Let's see if we get an idea. And here we see that bold braking on the uphill. It didn't really look like he had a bunch of overspeed. I think it just was a stronger braking performance into turn 1 there. So it's a good move for Adrian Garcia. Moves himself up to 13th. A guy we've seen at the front of the field in races before. So hopefully he's going to be aiming to grab a couple more points here today. Currently sitting at 10th overall in the standings. Has had some really good showings, especially early in the season at Daytona and Sebring. I believe a second place at Sebring. So looking to repeat that form. And he has plenty of time to claw up some spots here today. This field's still tight. Wide for Sheldon Rosenbaum. Travis Rowe looking to pounce. I don't think there's going to be a gap, but it's going to be enough to pressure Rosenbaum through these corners. He's going to be taking a slighter line, a more narrow line through all these corners until he kind of feels a little bit more safe. Still clearly feels a little bit defensive, and that narrow line is also what causes the pushing out wide that we saw from a couple drivers already on this track. In that corner right there. Rosenbaum keeping it inside and keeping that position, so keeping his cool so far. And again, Jack Colville there in that monster Mercedes, not being scored for points, still can be here to race. But any points that he gets are quote-unquote nullified, ignored. So right now, for example, Tyler Langenberg is in 6th overall, and those are the points that he would get post end of race. Doesn't mean he can't affect the race. Jack Lucas thinking about a send on Doty, and this battling back here, while Huber, again, is just very narrowly grabbing that gap on these guys out in front, it's going to mean that he can continue to step away, which is something that, from what we've seen this season, you can't let him do. You got to at least be ahead by that pit stop and have a good gap, let alone if you're behind him at the pit stop with how his pit strategy has just been spot on this season, and fuel conservation and all the things that play into that. So it'll be a little difficult for him here. But right now, Josh Doty, his difficulty is going to be defending from Jack Lucas currently. And so far, hasn't had to make any big defensive moves. Rosenbaum is definitely helping him out by giving a little bit of pressure behind, and it just kind of seesaws back and forth between this group on who's really under the pressure, who's getting attacked. It'll be interesting to see if James Foreman there, who's 3.3 seconds back, if he's able to take advantage of this at all and try to catch up to this group. He's not quite, he's just there over the hill, visible in the background. So not in this battle currently and not really catching up. So these guys are close, but I think the lack of pass attempts that we've seen so far has kind of kept their average pace up, and it's working well for all of them so far. But eventually they're going to have to start to battle for these positions. Zach Nurnberger, driver climbing through the field. He's trying to get ahead of Chris Newby here. Nurnberger now down 5 from where he started. That incident that we saw there in the S's at the start of the race in, I believe it was turn 6 with Jeff McDonald. And doesn't look to have any obvious damage on the car. Trying to reclaim some spots, and we'll see if he's able to do that. Looked like he was really close to making a move on Newby just a few turns ago. But a little, the battle's kind of petering out a little bit as it is. He's not coming up to a good passing opportunity here. The McDonald incident further back, I don't know if maybe he did have some damage from that collision. I don't see anything obvious. It's coming through turn 19, and the car just slides on him a little bit. Let's see, he gets out of the way. I wonder if we do see him rejoin. Todd Schneider there, having to avoid, as well as Daniel Sykes. So it does rejoin the track. No damage other than maybe a little bit to the tires. And while we were away, Nurnberger getting the spot on Chris Newby. So here's how the pass was made. Up the uphill, plenty of track there to take whatever line you want and getting the spot done. Still close at the front for these guys. They come down the straight. Again, the GT3 is just unfortunately a very stark lack of benefit from the draft. especially in high-speed tracks, and we're just not really seeing the advantage that we would expect to see or we'd like to see from the draft. It's not helping anybody. It is well, other than Josh Doty. Doty's able to survive out here without really being in the draft of Ken Huber. And also, in general, we've seen the higher top speeds come from the Mercedes, so he's staying ahead there. And the lack of draft is certainly helping him with that defense. Adrian Garcia claiming a spot on Kevin Bergquist here. And Bergquist just completely missed his braking point. Not sure what happened there. Into that hairpin of turn 12, and the easy pass for Garcia to make his way by. As we look up at the front, Nicholas Paletti, they are now, he's trying to chase down Paul Skip. They are now making their way through this traffic. Was about 0.8 seconds just a few laps ago, and now expanded to 1.9 seconds as they start this traffic procedure. So who can nail this traffic the best? They've only gotten by 3 GT3s so far. But you can see there the gap has slowly increased in on average between these two drivers, Skip and Paletti. He's just now starting as Chris Newby. He's trying to get by. Couldn't quite catch up to him there in the braking zone. It'll be interesting to see where they're able to stick their car in these S's. I mean, they're going to have so much more grip through this section. Take up a look at Paul Skip. He's already made his way by a few. And those GT3s that are all really close at the front, they're now making their way into turn 11. It looks like they're probably going to get caught maybe in that tight, twisty section at the end of the straight. Could be a little bit later than that. But it'll be interesting to see if this traffic kind of shakes things up for him, as there's not as easy of a spot. Like Skip can just fit his car in between these two. Up there at the front, there's not space for a car to fit in between two unless there's some pretty good teamwork going on. Heading down that back straight, Skip making his way by Nathan Westland. Still a lot of drivers to make their way through, but he has now expanded the gap to 4 seconds on Nick Paletti. I don't know what happened to Paletti there in those S's, but he did not run into good traffic at all. And Travis Rowe has finally broke the seal. Maybe not. Maybe not. Travis Rowe had gained a spot on Rosenbaum there just temporarily. He's still fighting for it, and it looks like he's going to lose out. I thought that might set something off, but they get back into line. Again, no positions changed for the top 9. Let's see what that move looked like, at least temporarily. Rosenbaum just trying to stay out of the back of Jack Lucas, kind of all the drivers going a little bit deep. Travis Rowe seeing that, trying to take advantage, but then couldn't quite place his car, again, because of Jack Lucas, couldn't quite place his car where he wanted to complete that pass. And it's going to be back in line for him there in 5th overall. Skip now is catching up to these guys. It looks like he's not going to be able to get to them before this S's section. Is this going to be a difficulty for really both of these classes coming through this tight, twisty bit? Christopher Newby coming into the pit lane. Not sure if that was scheduled or not. We saw him battling with Zach Nuremberger just a little bit ago, swinging around the outside Paul Skip, but the outside quickly becomes the inside, and these drivers need to be aware of everyone around them. He's having to wait. Does a good job to swing around the outside again here, not losing too much time to Paletti behind. Actually, only losing a couple tenths, actually. So, well done here, because Paletti might struggle a little bit more to paint it. Oh, and a bad time there. He really wanted the inside there. But look what he's done. He's now created the gap between Travis Rowe and Sheldon Rosenbaum. And Travis Rowe is unfortunately going to get passed by Jack Colville, I think, into the braking zone back here. But that just goes to show what this traffic can do to kind of break up these close battles. Looks like Colville actually backed out of it, not trying to do anything too aggressive. And Skip will be able to get by everybody except for Ken Huber here on the straight. Look further back, Paletti timing this up well, and you can see, again, the misjudgment by Skip trying to make his way by there in turn 7, I believe, is now dropped that gap to 2.5 seconds for Paletti. Nick Terrell didn't seem to get through quite as fast, and he's 3 seconds back off of Paletti himself. You can see him there in the screen. They're really making their way through the most difficult part of the race, the entire 130, minute or hour 30 race. This is the most difficult part for them. They're probably all happy to have made their way through the worst of it at this point. And Rowe did not let that gap sit too long. We saw the gap created by Paul Skip's car, and all of a sudden it's closed back up. Travis Rowe right back on the back of Sheldon Rosenbaum's gearbox again. Nick Terrell backing out of a move there, now back to 5 seconds from Paletti. They're just struggling so hard, these GTPs, to not lose a lot of time with all these passing events, and it's not really working out for them, with the exception of, I guess, Paul Skip coming out on top with that. But nobody really gaining a huge advantage on each other. At least it seems pretty evenly difficult. Garcia right now up 4 from where he started. Started in 16th place. Like I said, was looking to be claiming some spots here in this race. And trying to get up to Travis Bell here, another strong driver. I mean, it's easy to say claim some spots, but I mean, these are some pretty all-star names out here to be trying to make a move on. Travis Bell, really strong driver with some wins in the past, and I believe, again, winning the overall race in B class at Fuji. So has been able to win from even unlikely circumstances. But right now, having to battle Adrian Garcia as they both kind of catch up a little bit to Nathan Westland there in 10th. Bit off track there for Adrian Garcia, but keeping it on the track, but picking up the incident points that are surely going to hurt him come the end of this race. Again, they're quite valuable. They're getting the full safety points, getting 0 incidents here. I mean, that's worth multiple positions worth of points. And it'll be something that these drivers are attempting to do, trying to get as little incidents as possible. But when you're battling, sometimes you got to take that off track just to survive, or just to get a little bit of an advantage, maybe on one lap. Not enough that you get a slowdown, but you know, you got to take the advantages when you can. Right now, John Kelly now picking his way through this tight group, swings his way around Tyler Langenberg. Langenberg has been sitting at the back of this field, and maybe he'd feel a little frustrated that he's at the back of such a tight pack, but they have all pulled away from their competitors behind. James Foreman now stretched back to 5 seconds behind Langenberg. And Langenberg, while being in A-class and James Foreman being in B-class, they're actually kind of competing because, like I said earlier, Tyler Langenberg is second in the GTDA Championship. He's at 316 points on the season, but James Foreman in the B-class is at 318. So with 318 points, he's ahead of that A-class driver of Tyler Langenberg. Of course, it helps that James Foreman is one of the 6 drivers in B-class to have attended every race this season, at least coming up to today. Not sure if we're missing any of those here today. It does look like, yes, Jesse Coffey will be losing his streak, as well as Philip Ranieri. So a couple drivers losing their streak of perfect attendance, but Ken Huber, the only A-class driver, and Paul Skip, the only GTP to have attended every race so far this season. Garcia, again, keeping close with Travis Bell. Only a couple passing opportunities, despite there being 20 turns. Not every corner is a passing opportunity here on this track. See where he tries to choose to make something happen. He's getting really close. Again, not the best opportunity there because you can nail the exit, which it looks like Garcia having a better exit there. Has a long straight here to try to nail the braking zone. Down into turn 12 and try to battle through 13, 14, 15. He's just not getting any ground. We saw Bell go quite wide, but Garcia's going to have to do a pretty bold move here if he wants to make something happen. He is going to try a bold move down the inside and just gets it slowed down enough for himself, but I don't think it's enough to make the move. Bell's going to defend here. He's going to take a slight angle, and it's not going to do anything for him. Tyler Langenberg also battling with Jack Colville up at the front. And he's around the outside again. I don't think that he's going to be able to. He's going to stick it around the outside here. I didn't think that was going to be possible. He's going to get that spot. He got the spot. He lost it. He goes out wide though, and he's now going to fight on the outside of the last corner. Spelled doom for him, trying to swing around the outside of 17, 18, and now really starting to lose touch of that group in front due to that battling. So let's take a look again at that give and take that these drivers had. So just a little wide for Colville there in turn 15, a difficult double apex corner, and shockingly able to keep it pinned around the outside. I mean, surely he wasn't going to be able to stick it around the outside here, but he kept it going. But yeah, just going a little bit deep now there into this corner. The geometry of these corners makes it so difficult to take in a non-optimal way and still survive. We can see what's happened to him there. Kevin Berquist coming into the pits. Not sure if that's scheduled. We are at 22 minutes in. It's possible that that is his strategy. So I didn't see any crash for him. But he will now join Chris Newby as one of only 2 drivers to pit, although Newby may have towed given the amount that he's off. Newby's, I don't think, in this race. Looks like he is out. So not sure what caused him to make the call in that retirement, but we have lost Chris Newby here. Up at the front, Josh Doty, again, falling back just a little bit from Ken Huber, down to 3.5 seconds. And actually, that braking zone was catching up a little bit. But Jack Lucas and Sheldon Rosenbaum really wanting to get up to that second place overall spot. And Lucas, the only driver of this trio that's in the B class, still all the points matter. But the podium spots are made up with Rosenbaum and Doty for the A class drivers currently. With Travis Rowe, the next closest competitor, just right back there, 1.6 seconds behind Rosenbaum, trying to catch up to that podium. But a very good showing for Jack Lucas, who, again, the main competitor right now, Kevin Berquist, just came in the pits. Not sure if he's all right. I mean, he's back out on the track, so maybe a strategy call for him. But then the Jack Lucas being there in third, next closest B-class driver, all the way back there in 8th. So a 5-position advantage that he's got on the whole field. And James Foreman is no slouch. We've normally seen James Foreman as the guy in that position, the B-class guy that's up there with all the A-class guys once you get into race pace, and just has a huge advantage in points on the rest of the field. But right now, Jack Lucas showing Foreman how it's done. A tight battle also starting to form here in the middle, as Garcia has been catching up to Bell. Bell himself has been catching up to Westland, who is trying to make a move on Aaron Claybaugh. Nearly a thought for Garcia. Garcia has been itching to make a move, but just hasn't been close enough to actually make something happen. This midfield battle is getting pretty interesting. Again, just looking up a little bit ahead of that. Westland, who's up a couple spots, trying to get to Aaron Claybaugh, who is currently the back of the group of drivers who has not changed any position so far this race at all. Again, the top 9 still in their same position. The GTPs still in the position that they qualified as well. And really none of the battles close. 6 seconds from Skip back to Paletti, and then another 7 seconds back to Nick Terrell, within 15 back to John Kelly. So we're just unfortunately not seeing any battling back there. AJ Garcia trying to make the move with Travis Bell. He really mounted that curb. That was a bold move with some damage to the front bumper to the car of Adrian Garcia. Not sure if that came from earlier, and I think he's giving up the spot. I think he feels that he either got to slow down or he thinks that was just a little bit too argy-bargy to really live with. Let's see that move again. So here is Adrian Garcia going very deep, very late, and yeah, that's a pretty sizable collision. Let's see if we can get that from another view. I don't think that Travis Bell could really kind of do anything other than just avoid at that point. Had already really chosen his braking point, chosen where he was going to be taking his line. So I think Garcia just giving him the spot out of respect there between drivers and looking to try to reclaim that. Although he's starting to fall back. I wonder if that damage that we see to the front bumper, I don't know if that was caused in that incident. Maybe that is actually really bad damage that he's got there as he goes out wide. And are we going to see him in the pits? We are. So, yeah, really, really bad mess up to the front bumper in what seemed like a relatively innocuous collision. And we're going to see Garcia. Are we going to see him? Okay, saw him out there for a second. Hopefully still going to be rejoining this race, but we'll see. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Jack Lucas as close as he's ever been to Josh Doty. Doty's still not blinking, still not really throwing any defensive moves. Doesn't feel like he has to. Certainly not through the S's, where there just isn't the opportunity to get by. Down in the brake zone, here's where we saw Garcia just try to make that move. And Lucas thinking about the move as well. Maybe just take a different braking point. And generally, the better idea to just really nail the exit of that corner to try to make the move down here into the hairpin, but with the lack of draft, we just haven't seen really many moves made anywhere. So, but this has been the closest. The closest we've seen a move get to being successful is through turn 12 here. Don't think we're going to see anything here on this lap. Lucas shading inside just a little bit, but not enough to call that really an attack or a pass. A little bit behind that. Again, unscored Jack Colville there is catching up to Travis Rowe. And he had a nice scrap with Tyler Langenberg a few laps ago. And it looks like he's going to be able to get the spot tentatively here. He's going to go around the outside. He's probably going to switch back. Now heading into turn 17, 18. I don't know if he's going to have the drive. The switchback normally has a little bit more drive, but now heading straight into the corner kind of gets nullified a little bit. I think Travis Rowe is going to be able to hold head. Yeah, nothing doing for Colville there. Not trying to do anything too risky. But Travis Rowe is now 4 seconds off of Sheldon Rosenbaum. What was a close 7-car battle has now kind of split into 2 groups. We have Doty, Lucas, and Rosenbaum, and then we have Rowe, Colville, and Langenberg here, who Langenberg's still keeping ahead of James Foreman by a good 5 seconds. Not a lot of close battles further back. Colville looking to make the move on the inside. Pretty aggressive defense for Travis Rowe, but just nothing he could do with the car up the inside. It just was already there with Colville. And there's just so much room. It's kind of impractical to try to make a defensive line into that corner and try to hold him off or anything. So Colville getting a spot there, again, won't mean anything for Travis Rowe's final position. But a good move nonetheless. Let's take a look at that move again. Heading down to turn 1 up the hill. Rowe starting the turn, but I think once he had already started his turn in, already Jack Colville deserving a little bit of room there in the corner, and it's just the nature of how it has to battle through there. Rosenbaum with a little bit less of a drive, I think, there off that final corner, or that turn 11 corner before the straight. You can see Colville catching up to him there in that sector, that last sector as well. We also see the lap times there. Lucas has, for the last 2 laps, been a little bit faster than Rosenbaum. And Lucas, again, just desperately trying to get up to Josh Doty. We've seen him closer than now. They've kind of spread out a little bit again to 7/10 or so. We've seen him within 3/10, even less than that over the last couple laps, but spreading back out a little bit in this field. As we hit the 30-minute mark, we're about 1/3 of the way through. We'll take a few-minute break, and we'll be right back with you before any of the pit cycles happen for either of these classes, and we can start to see where things really shake out given the strategy differences. So we'll be right back with you. All right, we're back, and something happening right here on screen, right while we rejoined the broadcast. Travis Bell making the move on Nathan Westland. Can Nathan Westland defend? I don't think he's going to be able to do much heading into turn one. I was going to say, coming back into this, that unfortunately we hadn't really had anything happen at all within the last few minutes. It's been pretty stock standard for a lot of these guys. Not a lot of swapped positions. Well, actually, no swap positions during that time period. But throughout the whole field, not a lot of swap positions. And the drivers that were close, not really making any worthwhile efforts at passing. But even those guys who were close, we're starting to see some of those groups start to separate from each other. Right now, Jack Lucas up there at the front, over a second off of Josh Doty. Jack Colville's now dropped to 5 seconds back from Sheldon Rosenbaum. So this trio has really started to pull away from everyone except for Ken Huber. While Ken Huber hasn't actually stepped away that much, we could see on the lap times, he's been faster on a couple of these laps. On that last lap was 0.7 slower than Josh Doty. So not sure if there was a mistake made there, maybe traffic. I know we saw, I believe, Nick Terrell. There's Nick Terrell back there with the Travis Bell Nathan Westland battle. So maybe driver in front of him, maybe Nick Paletti was possibly involved, but the GTPs just continue to really pull away from each other. Nicholas Paletti there in second. He's about to cross the line. And yeah, he's a whole half a second slower on that lap, was 1.2 seconds slower on the previous lap, was faster on the previous couple, but kind of gets washed out when those two combined get erased in lap 18. So Paul Skip, really strong showing here at the front. Again, we saw him lead a good amount of last week's race before losing that position fair and square to Jack Colville down into the first sector of that track, and wasn't really able to reclaim it after that. I think had the fuel strategy off a little bit because I think he was playing it as if it was a normal 85% fuel. So I think we saw Paul Skip coming to the pits twice. Speaking of coming to the pits, Zach Nuremberger comes into the pits here. This seems to be the first stop for drivers that are fully on strategy. Hard to say if that's the case, but his car looks fine. I don't think that he has any penalties. He's clearly not doing a drive-through. And now 37 minutes in. It's a fair time to be doing it. So will be taking tires here on the stop. I have to wonder if the tire wear, I mean, it's not enough that it's really making anybody make mistakes at the very least. But I wonder if it's something that's been an issue. Langenberg right now close to Travis Rowe. And Daniel Sykes further back, also close with Todd Schneider, so we'll keep an eye on that. That's a battle for 14th currently. We've got two guys out of this race, Adrian Garcia, Chris Newby. We saw the damage that Garcia got, but we saw him coming to the pits, so I don't really know why he's out of this race. Chris Newby, we have no idea. I don't have any idea what happened to him. Christopher Craig didn't take the start. Jay Smart also not taking the start. So that is the lineup that we have here today. No drivers with a huge amount of spots lost or gained. Right now, Travis Bell the most gained with 4. He does, of course, benefit from Garcia and Newby, I believe. Or he does not, actually. He was ahead of both those guys. So, excuse me. Fair and square moves made by Travis Bell there. Nathan Westland, Jeff McDonald, Zach Nuremberger, some guys he's gotten past here in this race. Is the battle for 5th, 6th, given that Colville's points won't count at the end of this race. And Langenberg will be, unfortunately, breaking off this battle. Does technically get that spot temporarily, as the pit lane is a shorter entry than that final corner, which does help the pit loss. Again, the pit exit is about equal, so you just kind of feed onto the track and can move over when you've got the room. But Zach Nuremberger starting the pit cycle for these GT3s hasn't caught on to the whole field, but we have a couple guys coming in here early for what is going to be a one-stop race. Should be a one-stop race for these guys, but they must be feeling confident they can make it to the end with the amount of fuel they got here. I imagine a lot of good fuel-saving capabilities here at this track. There's a lot of off-throttle, a lot of coasting through these corners, just trying not to go out too wide and push the car. So I think that the fuel savings pretty potent here. compared to some of the more high-octane tracks that we've had in the past. Rosenbaum right now, the only driver within a second of any other driver, unfortunately, in this field. But this is for a overall podium spot. Rosenbaum on the third place podium spot for the GTDA field, but fourth overall because Jack Lucas is a B-class driver. So, and it looks like he kind of blew his braking zone there into turn 12. And yeah, now unfortunately breaking that. But hey, we have Daniel Sykes now closing in to a second with Todd Schneider, letting Nick Terrell make his way through. Get Daniel Sykes in then white and gray Porsche, trying to chase down Todd Schneider in his black and red BMW. The only BMW entrant in this race at all. It used to be the second most popular car. Sometimes, depending on the track, was the most popular car. And now we're only seeing one guy in it. Lamborghini, we're only seeing two drivers, Jeff McDonald, Ken Huber, and we saw McDonald have issues in turn 19. I don't think he really had any damage, but having issues making his way through the turn. Daniel Sykes wants to make the move. Todd Schneider got a little bit out of sorts back there in the S's, but it's just there's just no passing opportunity there in that sector. Even if the guy in front makes a small mistake, he's got to go way off track for you to really make your way through. Daniel Sykes taking a different line, a very defensive line for Todd Schneider. Hugs the inside, not going to have as good of an acceleration on the outside, but is that going to matter as they come down the straight? Sweeping down the straight, heading past the turnoff roads for the alternate layouts that you can do. The shorter layouts of this track are back there to the left. Won't be on the braking zone here for Sykes, but Sykes continues to put the pressure on Schneider. And now through turn 13 and 14. Can he make anything happen? Kevin Berquist is just back there in the background as well, trying to climb up some spots. We've already seen Kevin Berquist into the pits. And not the highest placed driver who's already pit, of course. We've seen Zach Nuremberger, who's currently in 13th, and Tyler Langenberg in 11th. We've seen them both come in for their pit stops. Berquist pitting on lap 10, though, might be too early in this race. We'll have to see come the end of this race, but that was a very early pit stop for him. I don't think we really found out exactly what spurred that pit stop either. Right now, Schneider just slightly slower in all these sectors. Daniel Sykes desperately trying to get the spot. Is he going to make the move into turn 1 here? He's pulling into the inside. Is he going to get it done on the brakes? He's strong on the brakes. Into turn 1, up the inside. I think he's got the spot done. Daniel Sykes with that successful move on Todd Schneider there into turn 1 on the overall lap 23. Let's take a look at that move again. And just nicely done on the brakes there. Not too much resistance from Todd Schneider, but a strong move nonetheless. See on board as he pulled to the inside. And you can tell that uphill just really aiding the car in the braking early when you're most likely to lock up, helping it out. Sheldon Rosenbaum now did technically pass Jack Lucas, but just because he is now coming to the pits. Obviously taking tires here at the end of the pit lane. Interested to see where he filters out here. Taylor Langenberg, 800 meters or so back. And Rosenbaum waiting to get the fuel finished before he can leave. Again, the fuel does take longer than the tires, so it gives the drivers time to make a full 4-tire stop and not lose any extra time. And it looks like it's going to be a quite healthy gap now between Rosenbaum and Langenberg, who is now 7 seconds back. We saw that gap kind of form there between Colville and Rosenbaum, and Langenberg was behind Colville, trying to get up to speed as Nick Paletti swings his way through. Paletti's closed the gap to Skip a little bit. It's down to 6.3. I don't think it's enough to be worried yet, but they are in the same parts of the track. They're in Sector 1, Sector 2, heading down into turn 11 right now. So within sight of each other at the very least, but I don't think it's in threat currently of maybe Paletti catching up here in the next couple laps. We're not seeing that kind of pace advantage and it could have just been a one-off traffic thing that may have slowed down Paul Skip or something to that effect. As we see there, Sector 2 faster for Skip. But 45 minutes in, we're now halfway through this race. Still a lot of racing to go. I think a lot of these gaps, though, are going to be difficult to really reverse the direction of. I mean, if the gap typically exists there for a reason, because the driver was faster. So for it to flip the other direction to the same amount, where then the other driver just suddenly gets faster here at the end of the race, hard to do unless there's going to be some big mistakes. And I hadn't really seen that. We've seen, I think, really just one spin. A couple cars kind of get into it with each other, but especially once these gaps start to increase and we're not seeing drivers battle as much, it starts to take out that element of randomness a little bit. Bergquist is not feeling too confident on the brakes there on Todd Schneider. I think Schneider was happy to let him try to send up the inside, but with this long straight, maybe Bergquist thinking a better opportunity into turn 12. As we'll monitor here coming into that. Nicholas Paletti now coming into the pit lane. So he making it to the halfway point as well as all the other GTPs making it a one-stop race for them as well. And unable to get it done there for Kevin Bergquist. Bergquist will be staring at that BMW bumper for a few more turns at the very least before he can make another move. Schneider not falling back from Dale Sykes. I mean, we saw the move from Dale Sykes made a little easily, but then Schneider's kind of held his own here and held pace, trying to keep up with him. I actually saw him within a few tenths, I think, this last lap. So these last few corners have been a little difficult as he's probably looking in his mirrors a little bit more than he was before, now with Bergquist arriving on scene. John Kelly coming into the pits for the GTPs as well. Paletti's on the exit. Not looking to see any dramatic pit strategy this time around like we did last week at Silverstone with the wonky fuel setup. So it's looking like a pretty standard setup for the GTPs, just coming in for a one-stop, and a one-stop for these GTDs because obviously there are most of them already making their way past the halfway point. We saw some drivers deliberately pit quite a while ago, actually. Now at this, I mean, it was for Nürnberger, for example, that was all the way back on his lap 17. Plenty of fuel to go in these cars. And the GT3s, if they want to extend the stint, we could see them go a lot further into this race still. Burke was thinking about that. The door seemed to open there for a second. Jack Lucas and Travis Rowe coming into the pits. James Foreman staying out. So Foreman will temporarily inherit the B-class lead, but obviously in the net race is quite a bit off of Jack Lucas currently, provided no mistakes happen. I do have to wonder, too, if maybe off-tracks become a thing for some of these drivers. I mean, of course, a close battle may begin to happen if a driver gets a drive-through and ends up losing some positions, coming out in a bad spot. But that's one of the few things I think we can expect here in this race to maybe shake things up. Tyler Langenberg is ahead of Travis Rowe through that pit cycle. And he's ahead by quite a lot. It's now almost 9 seconds, 8 seconds. 8 seconds between Langenberg and Rowe. That is a large gap between the two, one that didn't exist at that degree before. Nick Terrell coming into the pits. Burke was swinging around the outside of turn 17. I didn't think it would happen at all today, and now we've seen it twice. Makes his way around the outside of Todd Schneider. Schneider holding his line, but really nothing he could do with the pace that Bergquist had there through that corner. Take a look on board with Kevin Bergquist as he made this move happen. You can barely see just on the inside. It's not quite visible, but his car's right there. You can see, or you can hear Kevin Bergquist feathering that throttle a little bit just to stay under control and not turn too far inside on Todd Schneider. Gave him plenty of room, but making that move happen. Right now, Nathan Westland has caught up to Travis Bell as well. Both these guys haven't made a pit stop and they are catching up to Aaron Claybaugh, all three guys really on the same strategy. All the drivers behind them, with the exception of Sykes and Schneider, have pit. So the gap behind them is not a real gap that they have. They're not up there for a net 5-6-7, and we get, unfortunately, pit stop for Travis Bell. Of course, probably a smart decision for him to try that undercut and pass Aaron Claybaugh through the pits, but it may mean one less pass that we get to see on track. And we have seen very few, unfortunately, here today. Aaron Claybaugh now having to defend from Nathan Westland and see if he's able to do that. Westland is currently up 6 spots from where he started. And we'll be happy to bring home some good points regardless of where he shakes out here at the end. Okay, he's currently 11th overall, Nathan Westland, in the GTD standings. He is 5th overall in the GTDB. And chiefly, he's just 8 points off of that tied third-place spot of Bergquist and Jack Lucas. Now, obviously, Jack Lucas looking to make a huge jump in those points here today, provided nothing else happens to him. But Nathan Westland will be getting some spots on Kevin Bergquist. Bergquist currently in 14th after his pit stop he's already made. And Jesse Coffey not here at this race. So this could be a good opportunity still for Nathan Westland to get some consistent points here. It's obviously a fantastic opportunity for Jack Lucas to not only break that tie with Kevin Bergquist, but get up to the point where he's challenging Jesse Coffey there for second, too. James Foreman as well, who is in a net P2 for GTDB. A few spots behind Jack Lucas in the points for this race. But with him already being 50 points ahead of Jack Lucas, I don't think he's going to be sweating too much on the championship scale. And we'll be able to obviously pull away from Jesse Coffey even more with the lack of appearance here from Coffey. We have 2 drops already factored in for these drivers. But the main thing is James Foreman really doesn't have, his drops are not that bad on the season. He's a 26 points and a 26 points at Daytona and Sebring, the first 2 races of the season. Those worst showings were the very first 2 races. Since then, have all been really strong. And again, even with the second place overall last race, Nathan Westland, and yes, technically got the spot, but due to a pit stop from Aaron Claybaugh. So Claybaugh responding to the stop from his teammate Travis Bell. We'll see if the undercut was able to work for Bell, but 1 lap undercut, difficult to make do a lot with the quick reaction of Claybaugh. It's maybe a slow stop there for Claybaugh. It looked like he stopped maybe a little bit early and then had to scoot forward there. We'll see if that affects his pit time here. Can't really afford to lose much given that gap that he had. It was about 7/10. We can see that pit time counting up for Claybaugh. He exits, though, with 25.8. So Travis Bell's pit stop, regardless of maybe any sort of shakiness there for Claybaugh, Travis Bell's pit stop was longer. But Zach Nurnberger with the shortest stop of all at 22.7. He was the first guy in. He is ahead of both of these guys. He's now up in the 10th overall, which is where he started, but he's obviously had to fight to get those positions back after an incident right here in these S's with Jeff McDonald early in the race. McDonald himself is trying to get up there, but I think we saw him spin and lose some time as well in the second to last corner, so he's having a little bit more of a difficult time reclaiming some of these spots. He's there in 13th, down 2 from where he started. Josh Doty now coming into the pits. And very interesting seeing that McLaren, just one that we haven't seen in a long time as far as the car of choice. Has not often been that. And it does kind of seem the signs are on the horizon that it's a car that's going to be retired pretty soon. I mean, they haven't announced that they're going to be replacing it with the new model, the new Scan. It does feel like the Ford is going to be going away with it as well. There's been, of course, the rumors of the Ford Mustang potentially coming to the GT3 class here in iRacing service, and nothing substantiated. But that would be an obvious replacement for it. But no news at all from if the McLaren is going to get its new Scan in. But it does seem like they're kind of keen on maybe putting this car to pasture, but Josh Doty coming out to show that it doesn't really matter. He can still drive just as fast as anybody else with it. Has often not been that competitive of a car, not to the level that the Ford GT isn't, but he's in second place, and you're really competing with Ken Huber, which a lot of drivers haven't been able to do on the season. We've seen Josh Doty do it before. I believe it was Willow Springs where he was really keeping pace with him, especially early on in the race. But Jack Lucas, with these warm tires, he's already made his stop. He pit a few laps ago, and 3 laps before, seeing if he can make anything happen here. The advantage is slowly starting to go away for him as they continue through these turns, because this McLaren of Doty will be not only warming up its tires, but then getting its tires into the optimal window, and it'll have younger tires than Jack Lucas for the remainder of this race. So it maybe that small window of opportunity for Lucas to really take advantage, it seems like it potentially has already passed. Ken Huber now coming into the pits, so almost every driver with the exception of Jack Colville, and now Todd Schneider's in. So Jack Colville, the only GT3, did not come into the pits yet. Aaron Claybaugh getting a spot on Nathan Westland. This is up into turn 1. He's way back. Oh, okay. I was like, wait, that's like Nürnberger there. But not getting the spot in Nürnberger, but really strong on the brakes. Had to actually kind of panic brake out of that one. Jack Colville coming into the pits now as well on the same lap as Ken Huber. See what kind of gap Ken Huber has coming out of the pits here. Josh Doty 700 meters or so back. Huber, not the shortest pit in the field, like we normally see it, but one of the shortest, only 23.3 seconds. And I think Nürnberger, the only, Kevin Bergquist as well. Nürnberger and Bergquist, the only 2 drivers in the shorter pit. I think, though, that the pit stop for Kevin Bergquist was too early. Yeah, he pit lap 10, so he still may need to come in again. Colville on the exit, and it looks like he's going to fall behind. Yeah, he's going to fall behind Tyler Langenberg as he works to get his tires up to temperature. There's Langenberg as he swings his way through. So we're back to the order that we had before. Again, a large gap that had formed between Rosenbaum and Langenberg, 4th and 5th. Lucas, the closest guy to any other driver on the track. As I say that, actually, Westland has now closed that up to Aaron Claybaugh. Schneider also keeping it close to Daniel Sykes. Got passed a while ago. Trying to get that spot back again. Looks like traffic may have helped him a little bit through that. Travis Bell is the back end of this train here. A few guys fighting for up to 9th spot right now. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. All vying for position. All these guys have made their stops. Everybody should be on the strategy to take it to the end. So this could be the battle, one of the battles that we see raging until the end of this race, but don't think that they'll have to pit again. If they do, it's because they got some damage. Maybe because they're doing some battling, but because it's been difficult to make a pass here, and some of the passes have been a little bit rough. Again, we saw Adrian Garcia actually kind of tear up his front bumper with the pass, and given that spot back, maybe just couldn't even keep his car at pace down the straight anymore. I don't know. It did seem like a strange amount of damage to happen to his car. But this group of 4 right now, 3 of the 4 up spots from where they started. Claybaugh down 1. He started in 9th. Now he's down to 10th. Again, Nürnberger's climb is only up 1 spot, but particularly impressive given the circumstances of his early race where he was sent really to the back of the field. And we're seeing some good times for these new tires. Again, a purple Sector 1 for Travis Bell there. Josh Doty just put in the fastest lap of the race with a 2:08.7, which is just 200ths faster than Ken Huber's fastest lap on the race so far. So we're seeing some of the fastest times. The track is definitely a friendly kind of state. It's only 31 degrees Celsius, not that bad. It's been overcast for this entire race. For a lot of the practice, actually, it was pretty foggy. Not quite. Oh, and there we go. Out to the side, Nathan Westland making the move on Aaron Claybaugh. Yeah, strong move down on the brakes. Claybaugh, unfortunately, down another spot. and it looks like he's not going to be able to fight back for it. See back there, Todd Schneider trying to make the move on Daniel Sykes. He's got a good move into turn one, and then there, Jack Lucas. They just got lapped by Lucas there, and Schneider was really deep on the brakes. Sheldon Rosenbaum's not going to be making his way by, but still, good move for him on Daniel Sykes. We saw him battle in that same turn maybe 10 laps ago or so. They got a lot of layers to this lapping here. Travis Bell making the move on Aaron Claybaugh. Aaron Claybaugh has lost another spot, and he's lost a lot of time. Let's see what happened to him here. Herb, maybe? Yep, and that's exactly... We haven't seen anybody do it, but it is what I mentioned in qualifying, I think, that those gigantic pyramid curbs, I mean, they put them there for a reason. It's a deterrent, and he was just trying to stay quick on the inside there, was, of course... Probably thinking a little bit about some lost momentum and clobbering that curb. Unfortunately, he's going to do that. I think it really could have been worse, especially if it involved another car kind of in a collision with him there. But he's got a lot of time. He's got 5 seconds now to make up to Travis Bell ahead, who already seemed to have a little bit of an edge on him in the pace here at this section of the race. And now he's got a huge disadvantage in the actual on-track gap. So we'll see how this works out for Aaron Claybaugh here. Now, unfortunately, down 3 in that Porsche. Again, used to be really popular car, and we get a big spread among the whole field. But for the most part, Ferrari seems to be the most popular choice. Although, other than Sheldon Rosenbaum, nobody in the top 6 running it. So, definitely a variety there at the front. We got Lamborghini, McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Audi. And then another McLaren there, and Jack Colville. With then, I guess, Porsche there with Travis Rowe. So all of the drivers in the top 6, if you exclude Colville's legend status, are all in different cars. So I guess there's no really one perfect pick here tonight. And it goes to show a lot of it really comes up to the driver. And Ken Huber's certainly shown that. Just staying with the same car through every single race and dominating every single race. To be fair, 6 seconds today, not as dominant as he's been in other tracks. I know that he was maybe not looking as forward to this race until he enjoyed last week's and was getting a little bit more into it here, but not one of his most favorite tracks coming into the season here, COTA, but a strong showing here. It's just we're used to seeing Huber win by 20 seconds or so, as opposed to the 6 seconds that he's up now. But now, as we are coming close to the end period of this race, we're going to take a few-minute break. We'll be right back with you before any of the rest of the action happens. So, be right back. right, we're back, and we do have an event that we saw a couple replays of it. Tyler Langenberg, no, even worse for him. Had a very minor spin in the final corner, then had a big spin in that big right-hander. Had to do like a 7-point turn to let people by, and I don't know if there was collision there with Travis Bell. Let's try to take a look at what happened to him there in that corner. We just tried to get on board with what happens. Travis Bell quite a bit behind, so I don't think a collision happens here. Oh, maybe there is, actually. Yeah, very, very deep for Travis Bell. I don't think Langenberg was even looking for him there. And a bit of a tag on the back of the car, and what's already been a very frustrating last couple laps for Tyler Langenberg now just gets a little bit worse as he loses another position here. In the second place guy in the championship, coming in maybe for some repairs. I don't know if he has damage from any of those spins. It didn't seem like he had any big collisions. But second place in that GTDA championship was 7 points up on Travis Rowe, and Travis Rowe was there in 6th place. So I don't know if when we factor in drop weeks, how that's going to affect everything, but it is going to be difficult for him. He does have a good gap on Josh Doty, who is in 4th place, but Doty's having a fantastic race here. Second, still keeping it like relatively close with Ken Huber. I mean, 6 seconds, it's not enough, I think, to make Ken Huber be sweating, but he's in view. He's right there, right in our screen, and Doty can see him. We're used to second place not even being able to see Ken Huber on the track, but right now, Josh Doty is close enough to capitalize if there is a mistake made. Now, that being said, have we really seen many mistakes on the season from Ken Huber? Not really. He's been pretty clean, pretty mistake-free, and also really pulling home a lot of safety points as he's not just not making mistakes, but he has earned the full safety points in every race except for 2. Again, he's attended every race. He's gotten the full 5 points, which means 0 incidents at Daytona, Indianapolis, Okayama, Fuji, Mugello, Road America, and Silverstone. It's Silverstone incredibly difficult to keep a 0x on that track. This track even more so. So I'm interested to know where he's at on his count for that. And then he still got 4 points at Sebring and Willow Springs. Again, Willow Springs, we saw a really difficult time for these drivers as well with the track limits. So Huber's had a pretty flawless season, and Josh Doty's going to need a lot to go right for him, I think, to make this a competition up here at the front. 20 minutes to go. It's about 7 seconds now, so it's getting worse. And Travis Rowe having an incident as well. Let's see what happened to him here. Having some drivers with some issues on the tires. Looks like probably an unforced error. Just losing control of the car. This is where that spot to James Foreman goes. That is a spot. That's not a spot. That was Daniel Sykes. There's Zach Nurnberger. There's Nathan Westland. And so Travis Rowe, who was going to be, and also Travis Bell, who was going to be gaining a lot of points on Tyler Langenberg, is now just a spot ahead of him. Tyler Langenberg in the pits again. Oh, you know what? He maybe had a drive-through. That would actually make a lot of sense. We're maybe actually seeing a driver with a drive-through the first time. He was involved in that really tight battle for a lot of the race. Let's see if he comes into a stop. It doesn't look like he's angling towards a stop at all. So yeah, a drive-through for incident points for Langenberg, who now loses a spot to Jeff McDonald. But I mean, at the very least, he's just a couple spots back from Travis Rowe now, which does help the amount he's lost in the overall championship battle, with Rowe now down to 11th. Nathan Westland is hounding Zach Nurnberger here late. And now both these guys have climbed a good number of positions. Nurnberger up 3, Westland up 4. And Westland trying to make that 5. This is a very close 2/10. I mean, he has the opportunity to try to make. He's going to send it not down the inside. They have a little bit of traffic. Daniel Sykes there, I believe, the Porsche that they're trying to lap. And that does spoil a little bit of an opportunity that Westland may have had for something really bold there. Again, we saw Nathan Westland in a tight battle last week with, I believe, Zach Nurnberger, if I'm not mistaken, for the entire last 40 minutes of the race. So this is not a foreign sight for him. But we'll see if he never was able to make that move happen last week, and we'll see if he's going to have a change of heart here today and try something bold. late in this race. Getting closer about to the 15-minute mark, the 17 and a half now. GTP, again, hasn't been much of a story, unfortunately, as they spread apart early and they spread apart a lot. Paul Skip is the leader, was pole position, and pulled away to a pretty comfortable lead within just a couple laps. Nicholas Paletti still there in second. You know, all the GTP guys still where they qualified, but he's 11 seconds back. Nick Terrell is 30 seconds back from Nicholas Paletti, so I don't think we'll see them two coming together either. And John Kelly's 30 seconds himself back from Nick Terrell too. So unfortunately, not seeing a competitive GTP class here today. We saw a lot more competition last week at Silverstone, but that is part of this car too. It just really, not saying that it accentuates the differences between the drivers, but just because of how it's driven, it's much easier to create larger gaps, especially over longer periods of time. You know, as we get to this now, we're over an hour into this race, it's very possible that to spread out those gaps to a pretty large degree. The GT3s tend to stay closer, as you can see a lot of single-digit gaps throughout that GT3 field, but still, it's also just this track. 20 turns, none of them easy, and it's also a course that a lot of drivers don't like. It means that they don't have a lot of experience on sometimes, or at the very least, they don't get that drive. They don't have as much of a drive to just, crush it out there. So it is very difficult to, as we're seeing on screen too, very difficult to make the pass on slower traffic. But it does mean that gap between cars is just going to be accentuated, and that's how it's been in the class today. It's been in both classes, but there have been some close battles, really just due to a lack of passing opportunities, I think, as it's just difficult to really make their way around. Travis Rowe coming into the pits again, potentially. I think he may have come into the pits again, so he's back now into 14th, so actually behind Tyler Langenberg. So was 7 points back from Langenberg coming into this race, and not going to be getting anything extra here today. I bet, again, Langenberg needs to be careful, because if he's already got a drive-through, then the incidents to the next drive-through, like the first one is, I believe, 20 incidents. But then from then on, it's only like every 5. So very easy to get repeat offenses over and over again after you've already kind of broken through to the next one. Sheldon Rosenbaum trying to keep things interesting here. Hadn't seen him all that close to Jack Lucas in a bit. Actually, Jack Lucas was, hounding Josh Doty really not that long ago, but that gap between them is now 5 seconds. It's about equal to the gap for Doty to Huber. Huber not pulling away, but also not really getting any closer to Josh Doty, despite the really strong lap times that Doty is putting in. I mean, it's certainly not a lack of effort. Almost a lockup for Rosenbaum there. Rosenbaum maybe sensing a little bit of blood in the water from Jack Lucas. A couple bad corners for Lucas, and Rosenbaum trying to get under that half-second mark. Getting all these top 4 guys in the exact same spot that they qualified. Doesn't mean that they haven't been close with another. These guys are some of the few that have been actually involved with cars for a lot of this race. Has it been battling back and forth? Not quite as much, but they have been driving close to each other, that's for sure, and putting a lot of pressure on each other to keep that pace up, which is what both these pairs that we're looking at right now are doing. Nathan Westland just not close enough to be making anything happen. I mean, Nuremberger is really good at driving without making a major mistake on the defense. I think that he is a driver that thrives on the defending part. He definitely enjoys that more, I think. And he's doing really well here today. We see him do well on the season. Travis Rowe coming in the pits again. Is he doing a drive-through potentially? Yeah, it looks like that was. So Travis Rowe is in the same position as Tyler Langenberg with those racked up incident points and just starting to pay for it over and over again. I think he lost a spot to Todd Schneider there in that one. Tyler Langenberg making a move on McDonald, but let's see. He's already 2 seconds ahead. So, yeah, it was a mistake by McDonald going out wide with some traffic. And Langenberg, who had a really cursed couple laps, just trying to claw back some points. Now he's up to 11th. He qualified in 7th. And the unfortunate ending for him today. There's just nothing he can do to really make up for it. And Kevin Burke was now, coming into the pits. He pit on lap 10. I figured that was too early. I don't know what exactly caused that first pit stop. I don't think he would have done it by choice if he didn't have to. But it's going to potentially lose him a spot to Todd Schneider. Oh, I don't think it will. I think he'll actually be okay. Because, Todd Schneider is the next guy back. But currently 2 kilometers. It's not going to be a lot of fuel that Berquist has to put in this car. So Berquist won't be able to challenge Jeff McDonald, but not at least losing any spots in this event here. Rosenbaum here almost matching Lucas through all these sectors. Lucas slightly faster sector 1, slightly slower sector 2, equal in sector 3. There's not a lot of major give and take here. Or it really is just give and take. There's not a lot of major swings either way. What's happening for these guys? Jack Colville coming into the pits. Not sure. I mean, he's not being scored for points regardless. It does give us a better idea of the true positions that we have up there at the front. And that advantage that Jack Lucas had on the B-Class field, of course, still doing a great job there in 3rd place. He's exactly where he was before. But due to those incidents we've seen from Travis Rowe and Tyler Langenberg, means that this B-Class next up field of Foreman, Nuremberger, Westland, they've all gained a spot. And now Lucas just 2 spots ahead of James Foreman here in this race. Foreman has had a really quiet race today. Not to say it's been a bad one, just hasn't really been around a lot of cars. He was behind that big group. There was the big grouping that was all really close early in this race, and he had a good number of seconds back from them, but wasn't really being fought from behind. So I would imagine that he's probably been able to keep those incident points in check. He hasn't had too many people stressing him out and forcing him to go wide unless maybe some of the lapping traffic has done so, but I think that it's been a pretty clean race for him. 28 seconds to the next car, 29 seconds. He's obviously not going to be catching up there. He just has to worry about Nuremberger behind, which is 4 seconds back. Would be a difficult climb for Nuremberger to get up there, I think, but still not out of the realm of possibility. Rosenbaum, the top performer in the Ferrari here today. Again, what a really cool livery that he's got. Almost cell-shaded, almost Tron style, kind of. It definitely looks very neon, despite not actually having any glowing parts. It looks like it actually glows in the dark a little bit. So, love the look of that car. And the Ferrari is some mixed results there. We see 4 guys there in the top 7. However, none of them in the top 3. And then the other 2 Ferraris out of this race with Garcia and Newby. So it's been a mixed bag for him. It's the most used car in this race. We have 6 Ferraris. Next closest is really 3 Porsches, just because Christopher Craig not taking the start. And the 3 Mercedes as well. So just an interesting spread that hasn't seemed to actually really say anything. It doesn't really seem like the car choice has influenced really anything about the performance of the cars. We're seeing all kinds of cars all throughout the field. Travis Rowe claiming a spot on Todd Schneider. And Rowe has had a couple of pits now for incident points. Schneider letting him take the inside there, wasn't fighting it too hard. That was for position, but obviously 2 drivers having very different races here today. Langenberg get by Jeff McDonald a few laps ago, but McDonald catching back up here. McDonald in the victor's car right now, the Lamborghini, which, and looking at Ken Huber up there front, hasn't had a lot of screen time, but 5.5 seconds still in the lead. The lead has dropped a little bit, but not to a worrying level, given that we're now down to 7.5 minutes to go. It will be a pretty heroic effort for Josh Doty to make this a ball game here late. But Jeff McDonald is making this ball game right now with Tyler Langenberg for that 10th spot. 10th, trying to reach into the top 10. McDonald and Langenberg both maybe not having the races I think that they had wished that they had. We saw the early incident with McDonald that involved Zach Nuremberger, and then we saw the late incidents for Tyler Langenberg there around the 1 hour mark where the tires just seemed to go on him, and then he really earned himself some drive-throughs, which were really the big problem, I think, in the race for him. Two drivers who have won races here in the past, not at Circuit of the Americas necessarily, but just won races in the league, of course. So, yeah, I mean, they're fighting for 10th, but these are really strong drivers here. It's a stacked field, even in the GT3s. And, of course, it'll be a very stacked field next year in the GT3s because it'll be all GT3 in the next season. There will be some rain as well, so that'll really mix things up on the tracks that will have it. And we'll add a good variety of strategies as drivers have to manage the crossover points from dry to wet and wet to dry. And the other thing is there'll be a variable race format as well. So some of the races will be 2 hours long, big long endurance ones. Some will be split into a couple of heats, and some will be split even into sprints. I think the 3 sprints is the shortest ones that we've got, so like 40-minute sprints. So it'll be interesting to see how that variable race format does next season, as we'll get to see some more battling throughout the field in some of those sprint ones, and then the endurance ones, you know, just the value of them becomes so much more elevated because it's just that single race. Any one mistake now, it means you're taking out essentially 3 races worth of points. So the stakes will be higher for those endurance events, and that'll be fun to see. Stakes are high right now for Jack Lucas. Again, he's not going to be losing the B-Class win, but he may be losing some points here if Rosenbaum's able to make something happen. This is as close as he's been, a 10th and a half now into turn 1, which is the second best passing opportunity. I actually thought that he really could have made something happen there. He pulled out quite early, abandoning that opportunity. And we'll see if he's got the tires in him to make something happen again. Again, Rosenbaum pit on lap 20, Lucas on lap 22. So Lucas should have the fresher tires, but it seems like Rosenbaum's car has just a little bit more pep in it right now. Paul Skip, who has that 10-second advantage, is now getting by through the S's. He's got up the inside, not where Lucas wanted. No, in a collision. I don't think Rosenbaum saw the slowdown for Lucas coming. And unfortunately, taking him out there. They're going to be safe from Foreman behind. I wonder if he slows down and lets Lucas by. It wouldn't shock me. We see Rosenbaum going pretty slow. We actually saw Rosenbaum lose his bumper as well. I don't think Lucas any bad damage. So we'll see if the positions swap here. Just unfortunately a clumsy move there for Rosenbaum. Didn't expect, I think, how much Lucas would have to let off there to let Paul Skip get around. We'll take a quick look at the replay of it. So this is what happened. Again, Paul Skip's swinging around the outside, but that becomes the inside here. Lucas is aware of it. I think Rosenbaum kind of sees an open door. I understand late in the race, but yeah, it just wasn't the best opportunity, I think, to make the pass there. But it looks like he's going to maintain that position ahead. Lucas now with just a 1 position, just a normal advantage over James Foreman here. Still 22 seconds ahead, so very safe ahead behind. But as far as points gained on class leader James Foreman, it's going to be a little bit less here today. Jeff McDonald getting this spot on Tyler Langenberg. So he just lost that 4 or 5 laps ago, and he's now got that spot back again. See a replay of that happening. Langenberg looking like he's just going really, really. He almost lets him have it there. I wonder if he has potentially another drive-through that we're about to see him serve. as he wasn't fighting that very hard. Travis Rowe having an incident himself as well. You can see he's spun there in, I believe, that looks like turn 15, one of the more difficult turns, and Todd Schneider making his way through for position. And again, that's another 2X for him. I wonder if we're going to see either of those two guys that were running up there at the front, Rowe and Lingenberg, we're going to see him come in for another drive-through. But we are down to just 2 minutes, so if they got to serve it, or if they're due to serve it, they got to serve it now, because otherwise it's going to be tacked on as a post-race penalty, which ends up being a larger penalty than the drive-through is by a good margin. So hopefully nobody earning a drive-through on their final lap here. A couple guys close, but I think that this order that we're looking at is probably going to be the final order we have. Nathan Westland, one of the closest guys, one of the guys most likely to be able to maybe get a spot here. Zach Nuremberger, he's going to have a really cracking lap. He's got 1.3 seconds, 1.4 seconds now to Zach Nuremberger in front. Letting some traffic through at a pretty decent time at least, but they're going to be getting the white flag next time around, which Paul Skip currently is approaching. So Skip's getting that white flag, as you can see that waving back there. In the start and finish line, very different on this track, as far as the start line being much further up the race, track finish line being back there. So Paul Skip's starting the final lap of the race here, and no threat behind. 10-second gap to Nick Paletti. Has stayed pretty stagnant, but I think that he's been able to drive it pretty calm. Meanwhile, in the GT3s, not that it's too late to really think maybe anything's going to happen, but Josh Doty's closed that down to 3.5 seconds to Ken Huber. This would be one of the smallest gaps of victory I think we've seen for Ken Huber, outside of course, not winning the first race. But other than that, not seeing any positions really being fought. Nuremberger probably wishing there was a few more laps, or at the very least that he didn't have an incident early on in this race, because he's just a second back from James Foreman to make his way into the top 5 overall. And not only that, but he's on the podium currently, so he'll be able to maintain that podium spot as he comes up to take the final lap. Obviously took at least 1X back there as he went off track a little bit. Don't think we're going to be seeing any action here on this last lap. Not a lot of guys too close to each other, unless there's any off tracks or anything that's going to cause a drive-through. So as we switch over to Paul Skip, it's been a quiet race for him. It's been a quiet race for a lot of the GTPs. Hasn't been a lot of battling. The points still count regardless. You don't get extra points for it being a hard-fought race. Skip able to get the pole position. Very difficult pole position for him to get, but then stepping away in this race and really showing why he's up there at the start of the field. Paul Skip with another victory on the season here today, and that is win number 6 out of 10 as he continues his championship bid. Congratulations on that win there for Paul Skip. Not a lot of guys able to compete with him. Nick Paletti, 10 seconds back. It's the best he could do. He's still hanging in there in the championship, but may be able to jump Nick Terrell with that performance. It depends on the safety points, but they were just separated by 3 points coming into today. I wonder if he'll be able to get second. Oh, and Zach Nuremberger's closing up on James Foreman here. Is he making the move? Oh, he's really close. He's making James Foreman go out wide. He's going to take the inside. I can't believe a move was actually made on the final lap here. Nuremberger closing a whole second gap to make his way into 5th. James Foreman, the GTDB leader, losing a little bit of points in that bid to Jack Lucas. Now a little bit more points lost to Jack Lucas. Ken Huber crosses the line up at the front as the GT3 winner. Josh Doty 3.5 seconds back. Congratulations. Great performance for him. James Foreman, I don't think is going to be able to do anything here late, as that was a wonderful move for Zach Nuremberger. We'll watch a replay with that once everyone's crossed the line here. Nuremberger finishing the race as up 5 spots despite the early incident. So a great performance on him, and I think a personal best on that final lap to boot with a 2:08.8. That's up there with some of the fastest times in the entire race. Fastest lap did go to Ken Huber at a 2:08.29. But not a lot of drivers making their way into the 208s in this race. And Claybaugh looking to come across in 9th place. And actually, despite how few positions seem to be swapped, one of the only drivers to finish where he started here in 9th, as well as the 1st and 2nd of Ken Huber and Josh Doty in the GT3 class. And Tyler Langenberg will be rounding out the field as the last guy to cross. So let's take a look at that replay for the move that Nürnberger made on James Foreman. So they came down the straight. They were already battling and just a little bit wide. Good on the gas for Nürnberger to take advantage of the room while he had it. And it just maybe just nothing left in the tires for Foreman. So we will look at our official results here. So, Paul Skip, winner, with a 10-second advantage on Nicholas Paletti. Nick Terrell rounding out the podium there in 3rd. John Kelly coming in 4th. And Jay Smart not taking the start of this race. Meanwhile, in GT3, Ken Huber is your victor. Yet again, continuing his streak, 9 straight wins on the season. Josh Doty, 2nd place with another podium. Sheldon Rosenbaum continues his streak of podiums, 3 races and 3 podiums. Jack Lucas is the winner for GTD-B. Zach Nürnberger comes behind him with James Foreman and Nathan Westland. Travis Bell, Aaron Claybaugh, and Jeff McDonald round out the top 10. Tyler Langenberg, Kevin Berquist, Todd Schneider, Travis Rowe, Daniel Sykes, Jack Colville, Adrian Garcia, and Christopher Newby round out the field with Christopher Craig not taking the start. So we will look to get some drivers in here for some interviews. Let's bring in our GT3 winner, Ken Huber, to start with. Can you get me in the booth here? It was another pole position for you here today. Another victory. I mean, this one actually maybe a little bit close when we came down to the end. I don't know if maybe you were taking it a little bit easy. We've kind of been expecting 20-second victories for you here. 3.5 seconds here today. Were you sweating a little bit more?
A couple other guys back there, they were all strong tonight. So, and this is a highly technical track. So, yeah, they gave me my money's worth. I was trying to let the GTPs give them a lot of room. I didn't want to take any chances, and that cost me some time. But to be honest with you, Joshua was doing a great job keeping up. So, yeah, he's making me earn my pay tonight.
Now, I wasn't able to keep an eye on the incident points through today. We saw some drivers with some drive-throughs hitting that incident point limit. You're a guy who has had 0x on all but 2 tracks on the season. How were your incident points here today? This is the most notorious off-track place in probably the entire iRacing calendar.
Nick asked me that same question. I got 0.
That's impressive. I have done a 0 before. I think I was like 23rd. So to be 0 in 1st is definitely a strong achievement for you there. The off-track woes are not going to be ending next week because we're heading to another F1 track with contentious limits with a Red Bull Ring. Not really. That's basically where the similarities end between these 2 tracks. So what are you looking forward to next week with that Red Bull Ring race? And, what kind of different qualities are you expecting from that?
That's a good question. You got to be careful on, I think it's turn 3, going over that hump. But, I kind of like Red Bull. I don't usually have that much of a problem with off tracks. Now I probably just jinxed myself. But, what's a real accomplishment, though, is you, Zach. I guess you're in the booth tonight by yourself. That's some work out there.
Yeah, it was a long race here today. Last week there was a lot going on, a little bit less going on, unfortunately, in this race. But it was still.
I want to
give
you some. I want to give you some kudos, and like I said, that's a lot of work. And to go up there solo, I don't know what happened to your partners, but hopefully they can come back again.
Yep, I appreciate the kind words. It was a great race to watch you out there. And I'm sure we're gonna hear from you again. So good luck to you next week at the Red Bull Ring, Ken.
All right, take care, Zach.
Have a good night. That was our GT3 winner, Ken Huber. So now we'll bring in our GTD-B winner, Jack Lucas. Jack, you get me in the booth here.
Hey.
Winning GTD-B here. So, again, coming into this race, you were strong in the standings. You were, as far as in the GTDB, you were tied with Kevin Bergquist for third. But what you didn't have on the season was a pole position, and you didn't have a win. You had a few podiums. You had 3 podiums already coming in today, but you didn't have either of those. You've now crossed both of those off your list here. So, what was the secret sauce here today? You had a huge leg up on the rest of the GTDB field tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was really just a matter of practice. I practiced a few days ahead of time this time, and yeah, I don't know, just put in the work. I didn't expect to be third in the standings. I was pretty scared about that. I'm usually more like middle of the pack. So yeah, pretty happy to start third. Almost finished third, but unfortunate incident at the end there with Sheldon.
Yeah, and you were involved in that early part of the race where you were one of 7 cars that was all within like a second of each other for the first 20 laps, 25 laps or so, but none of the positions were being swapped. Like there was no passes happening. Was there kind of an agreed sort of teamwork that was happening there to try to just stay with Ken Huber up at the front?
I don't know if I'd say that. For me to have gotten past Doty there, I would have had to go for just a mega dive bomb. So I figured I'd keep it respectful, see if he'd make a mistake, and that just never happened. So
now, as far as next week, we're definitely flipped. It's not a similar track at all, other than the fact that we've got potentially some more off-track issues, which Circuit of the Americas is the worst of the bunch. But Red Bull Ring next week, another one that sometimes can have issues with that, but a different track in really every other respect. So what are you looking forward to with next week? And, do you think that your strengths are going to come to play out at Red Bull Ring as well?
Yeah, I think I do like Red Bull Ring, so I'm hoping I can get another decent result there. I don't know if I can expect to get P1 again, but yeah, pretty happy with how tonight turned out.
Well, again, congratulations on that maiden victory here and maiden pole. So getting both here today. And I think, as far as basically getting the Grand Chelem, I know it doesn't work that way with the GT3 as much, but staying at the front of that GT3 field for the whole race. So congratulations on a really good showing here tonight. And we look forward to maybe hearing from you again next week.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night, Jack. All right, we don't have Paul Skip in the booth here today, so that is it for our interviews. Again, as just mentioned, if you're here for the Endurance for Amateurs racing, we'll be here again next week at the exact same time. Red Bull Ring, a super exciting, simple track, very opposite of this one, only like 9 turns to it, and should allow for some really, really close racing, some really tough racing throughout that whole race. So, again, see everybody next week, same time, and everyone have a good night.